I'm Eric Barnes of the Daily Memphian, and welcome to the Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today, we're talking with Tim Barker of Edge Alley, so stay with us for a conversation with Tim. Tim, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, you closed Edge Alley. Why did you do this to me? This was a kind of personal... I literally had people say, I'm so upset that Edge Alley is closing, but I'm more worried about you, Eric.
It's
closing.
I've had people call me to check on you.
And there's a lot of it. There are a lot of people that is, it really was. I'm joking aside, and I won't tell you anything about me. It's an amazing place. It really was so great. And you've done lots of cool restaurant stuff in Memphis over the years, and we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about what's next. And as you said to me, I think I gave you a hug the last day I went by, and you're like, no, it's a good thing. And we'll talk about all that. But I am going to joke around with you because and just so people know, like, I do make these habits of restaurants. And when I'm on our food podcast, Soundbites, with Chris and Holly, and back when Jennifer was doing it, I get in these routines, right? Edge Alley for me and for Daily Memphian, I mean, it's a place I would go to Edge Alley 40 weekends a year, probably. I think I was there 40 times a year. Easy. On a weekend.
Easy. Twice a week sometimes.
Sometimes twice a week. When our office was closer, I'd easily be up there 3 times a week, getting coffee, lunch, both, sometimes coffee, lunch, and then coming back for dinner. You guys catered some of our earliest Daily Memphian gatherings in the back of High Cotton.
Yeah, I think the launch party was...
Yeah, launch party with staff and board members and stuff. And a ton of interviews took place there. Jennifer Biggs.
Yeah, I remember.
May she rest in peace. She was, first time I met her and interviewed her for a job at Daily Memphian was there. And even the whole Memphis Medical District connection to Tommy Pacello. And Tommy was never involved with Daily Memphian, but there's sort of something about it that connects it. So it really, beyond being a really great restaurant, it was a really great place with a lot of connections for me and for Daily Memphian. So again, why did you do this to
me? Yeah, I think I had said in the interview with you guys that I didn't realize I'm so often just kind of confined to the kitchen, these past couple of years. And so I know a lot of people are really connected to the restaurant, but after closing, that's when I really started to understand how many people had such a deep connection and spent, they've had life-changing moments in the restaurant, or they got, they got engaged in the restaurant and they come back every year on their anniversary, or their kid learned to crawl or walk or how to eat solid food. I mean, it's just like so many people that
wow.
I didn't realize like how much of a part of everyone's life the restaurant was. But it's been great to hear those stories and, and share that with our guests.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is one of those places that was a place also. Like there are places you can go in Memphis or anywhere, really good food. You want to finish and get out of there, whatever, for whatever reason. You can go to places that are just great to be there, great service. Food's fine, but it's just like it's a neighborhood place or it's a something place. You can go to places that have great food, absolutely horrible service, and whatever, the environment. You manage something, you and others, right? And there's a whole bunch of people there to hit everything on every level.
That was our goal from the outset, was to find a way to be as proficient as everything as we could, whether it was the food, the service, the environment, and just really try to make it kind of everything for everybody all at once. And so a place where you could come and hang out and have a cup of coffee. You could have a full meal, or like you said, come back, twice in a day and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to have enough space to be that,
Yeah. The space was, and if people are listening and they missed, it was 5 years, 6 years?
The restaurant was open for almost 7, but
okay.
Then there were 3 years previous to that of demolition, design, concept, and construction.
Because it was one of the earliest, and it goes back to the Tommy Pacello thing, it was one of the early redevelopments in the Edge District, is that section of Edge was getting redone.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, and it happened around the same time that MMDC was formed.
Yeah.
Tommy and I were friends previous to MMDC, and he was a big part of the reason that neighborhood was attractive. I mean, he's a good friend, and he believed in the neighborhood, and he did so much good work over there, and like I said, what a great friend to have had. So.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had coffee with her sometime, and it was one of those places where you could just go by and you would see people. You'd see Tommy, you'd see people from the neighborhood. There are all these regulars that you would constantly see.
Absolutely.
During, I guess, the one other thing I will mention that I'm going to talk about writing there. So I write books, when I'm not doing the news thing, and I've joked a lot whenever we have talk about food or places to drink and over on sound bites about. I really do like to write in bars, and and I like to write in coffee shops, and I like to write in restaurants. And I got in this habit of going and sitting, and you had the cool windows, and I sort of would be there, and everyone was just it was ridiculous. It was just comically wonderful how I'd walk in and there'd just be a kind of nod to a little place over in a corner, and I'd go over in the corner, and I could sit there for 3 hours, right? And eat and have a glass of wine and have another glass of wine and have some coffee and have some water and maybe have another glass of wine. I was there for 3 hours. And work and work and work. And one funny thing about it, which you sometimes got criticized for, is you didn't allow laptops.
That's right.
During lunches when you used to do dinner. And what it caused, and we can talk about that. What it caused for me was I was already somebody who hand wrote a lot, but the book that my agent has is Shopping Around and all that, and the book that I've been working on very much in your restaurant, I think 2/3 of it I hand wrote.
Yeah.
A 250-page book.
I expect a byline.
I think
somewhere.
I did. Well, with this one, I think I referenced in the thanks, in other books before I was writing at Edge Alley, like Beauty Shop and some other places where I have worked. And if and when I get the one that I really spent so much time in your restaurant working on, I will absolutely put it in there because it was a big part of changing. That I got a handwrite. I got all these pages. I then switched. I kind of cheated on the
tablet was all right.
The tablet. Yeah. I started using a tablet with a stylus. And I was like, well, you can't stop me from doing that.
No, that counts. That's perfect.
But it was not a laptop with a keyboard.
That's right.
That is one of the strange things about my memories of Edge Alley is just handwriting. I mean, who the heck handwrites anymore? But all this handwriting that I did there. People looking at me like I'm a lunatic, but I had my headphones on. And
your handwriting is kind of terrible too, if I remember.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
Wow.
Yeah. Why? Let me ask you why. I actually never asked you. I think I got it, but why the no laptop thing?
So the policy was no laptops during dinner service or on the weekends during brunch. When I am in a restaurant, I find them distracting, not just from the food. It's not even really about that. It's just distracting in an environment where someone spent so much time kind of creating a place to be on a laptop. And then also there are many reasons. So there's that. They're distracting. They're noisy. People banging on keyboards, but also I feel like it's really hard to have brunch at a table next to someone who's on their laptop and really,
right,
have a good time.
Yeah.
When you feel
and then you got the Zoom thing that in a lot of coffee shops now, because especially after COVID,
that's right.
During and after COVID, people it's this invitation to have a meeting. I was in a really great place yesterday. I won't name where because it wouldn't be fair. And that started happening. And I was like, don't do that. You can't be on a Zoom call on your laptop in this place.
In public.
That's, come on. Starbucks, yes, but come on.
Well, I think, for the most part, it was a distraction. And I felt like it took people out of the fun of spending time with others in real life.
Yeah. Again, we're here with Tim Barker from Edge Alley. And also, we'll talk more. You've been a restaurant consultant. You've consulted on restaurants, worked at other restaurants. We'll talk about all that and what you're getting back into that as we go forward. So it's interesting to talk about how you made Edge Alley such a great place on all the levels, right, of the place to be. It was also one of the places in Memphis that was as diverse as any place in Memphis. Young, old, black, white. Just a kind of, and I don't know the intentionality behind that or that, how does that, because there's some places you go that just aren't diverse. And again, that could be by age, that could be by race, that could be, it was just an incredibly, truly eclectic place with an all-comers kind of vibe to it. That was just a byproduct of everything else, or that was intentional? Or
I think that that's one thing I'm really proud of, how many people and how diverse the group, like I said, a lot of people have reached out with fond memories, and it's everybody, and I think a lot of things played into that for us. The environment, it was cool, trendy. A lot of people felt like there was nothing else that looked like that in the city. It felt like a place where you could go and kind of, feel like you're somewhere else. Our price point also was a big factor. We tried to, we always used exceptional quality ingredients. We had exceptional servers of very diverse backgrounds as well. So like it felt comfortable to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think the price point is and was approachable.
Yeah. The servers were amazing. I mean, they weren't just amazing to me as a regular, but they were just, you just had really good people who stayed with you for a long time.
That's right.
And you could tell it's a little like if you go over to, and you worked with Karen at Beauty Shop for a certain amount of time. I mean, she has folks who've been there for 10, 15, 20 years.
That's right.
In a very difficult business. It says a lot about a restaurant when there's these people who've been there for so long, that the folks like you, the owner, manager, everything, must treat them well on not just financially, but just must treat them well on every possible level.
Yeah, I think that, anytime I hear of a restaurateur that has had people for a long time, that's a sign of good culture. That those people have bought in. And that's a difficult thing to do, is to get your staff to believe in what you're doing on a similar level as, to be passionate about a thing that they don't, to be passionate about their job and to care. You always say, I can train somebody to do just about anything, but you can't train somebody to care about what they've done or to take pride in it.
Yeah.
And I think that once you find those people, we have to hold on to them.
And you did. It was through COVID, I think a lot of the people who moved on, graduated from college. Again, I kind of knew people too well, but it was more that than otherwise it was incredibly.
That's right. A lot of people were here for school and left, and we all keep in touch. I consider those people are still, we're friends. We had coffee on Saturday.
What you answered this question in the interview you did for us, and you've answered, but just for here. And so why are you closing? Why did you close?
A number of factors. The timing is sort of right for Edge Alley to close. My lease was running out. Cost of goods have soared. Labor has been difficult. Not just expensive. I mean, people are worth more than we've been paying them, but it's just finding people has been difficult, and finding good people who, again, are passionate and aren't just looking for a job.
Particularly, I think you and I, because we sometimes see each other. You were in the kitchen, especially once COVID started, and since then. That's right. Very much back there, working, not sort of out front doing the, like greeting or something. I don't know what, but you were back there working. You really struggled. You had all this continuity with the servers, but in the kitchen, that was, you were cooking and cooking.
That's right. And we never really had a lot of high turnover in the kitchen. It was just a core group of us that stayed on. And then it just became difficult to find people. It became difficult just to find people in general with, with the right level of skill.
Yeah. And I've heard that, again, there's my sort of routine restaurants I go to, and I've gotten to know folks who, whether they're the owners or the managers or whatever. And that is the main thing they talk about. It's just what about the industry, and we'll kind of segue in a minute into kind of what you're doing in consulting and stuff. What about the industry? Is it all COVID? Did COVID, from your point of view, why did COVID hit the staffing of restaurants so hard?
The restaurant industry has always been somewhat volatile as an employer, so to speak. I think that a lot of people decided to go back to that thing that they went to school for, or to revisit that career path that maybe they didn't choose. And so I think a lot of people, I know several of my staff that didn't come back after COVID, became computer programmers, decided to go work in whatever industry they were interested in before they started working in restaurants, something a little more stable, a little more predictable. It really did COVID really showed the volatility of the restaurant industry as a whole.
I would think too. This is my theory, and you can tell me I'm wrong. Especially for folks cooking, like server. I mean, the hours are just kind of insane.
They can be,
and so the servers work a shift, and they're there before and after, and I don't want to take away from that at all.
Sure.
But the amount, I mean, you told me one time, like I would kind of infamously get the shrimp and grits all the time. And I will always remember you said, well, there's shrimp and grits I don't like shrimp and grits. So I came up with my own recipe for shrimp and grits. And it was this amazing kind of thing that you made. But just that alone, I mean, the cooking that went into what brunch ran from 9 a.m. till 2 or 3?
3 o'clock.
How many hours did you work to make that happen?
My week would be 60 plus hours a week. We stopped doing dinner because I ran out of staff for it. And there's only so much you can push someone. When we were doing dinner, I was working more like 70, 75 hours a week.
Yeah.
And then that means that the sous chef was working 65 hours a week. And, we're down to one dish person and he's working 60 hours a week. And so it just got to be dinner just kind of became a burden on the human resources. It wasn't even about anything else except I just can't push these people any harder.
And yourself.
And myself.
At some point. Right.
But like this, something as simple. I think I've told you before, like in person, it's like the goal with the food was always to make it appear effortless.
Yes.
And so there are hours and hours and hours of preparation that may go into a dish like the shrimp and grits. Some parts of that dish take 2 days to make.
Right. I remember you telling me that. I was like, oh my God.
And so but you shouldn't experience that. You should just enjoy the meal. There's a lot of finesse that goes into making a perfect, even something as simple as an avocado toast. There's a lot of effort and work that goes into it, from making our own bread, choosing the perfect avocado, the way it's sliced, the way it's presented. There's a lot more to it. And that's not just my restaurant. That's every restaurant. There's a lot more that goes into it than people really are privy to.
Which is partly, I think, and we'll move into the consulting side, is part of what people want as part of the experience. I mean, some restaurants I guess you go to and you want that 6-course meal and you want to feel like that. But you set out, and I would say Beauty Shop does this too. There's a kind of effortlessness to the food that it has, that it feels both casual and formal. It seems really not homemade, but there's a kind of care to it that's sort of, you almost don't notice, but it's clearly
personable,
unbelievable what's gone into making those dishes.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking to Tim Barker of Edge Alley and of restaurants in Memphis, and we'll talk a bit about where he's going and some of the other restaurants he's worked at. But let me take a minute to do a little housekeeping. I'll remind everyone that this is the Sidebar. I'm Eric Barnes. The Sidebar is on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30, focused on the community, arts, culture, everything in between. It's not just a radio show. It's one of many weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including the Memphis Grizzlies podcast, the Memphis Tigers podcast, our food podcast, Soundbites, that Chris Harrington and Holly Whitfield host. And that one also airs here on WYXR every Thursday at 11, right before the Sidebar. All of our podcasts are on the Daily Memphian site, as well as iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also download or listen to this show at WYXR.org or get the app. All of the WYXR shows, talk and music, are archived on the app. So it's a great way to stay in touch with what's happening with all the various DJs and hosts on WYXR. Do become a member if you can. So become a member of WYXR. It's nonprofit listener-supported radio. Or you can donate just one time. If you become a member, you get all kinds of benefits, or you can donate. It does take a lot to put the radio station on, even with all the volunteers. We have coming up soon, as we get into this new year, Serena Wages, who's been on the show before, a musician and singer. She has a new album coming out with Joe Restivo and some other Memphis musicians, produced by Matt Ross Spang. She'll be on, I think, next week, or soon, in the next couple of weeks, to talk about the new album. That leads up to a listening party at the Listening Lab in Crosstown, coming up, I think, February 1st. Also coming up on the Sidebar, Lakeisha Edwards from the Urban Art Commission, Rory Thomas from the Memphis Medical District, as we've been talking about. We recently had Lauren Reddy on talking about, is it Reddy or Reedy? I said it wrong.
It's Reedy.
It's Reedy. I said it wrong again. Lauren Reedy from Forever Ready Productions throws me off. We had her on recently talking about storytelling, talking about video, talking about the news business. And I should also mention Behind the Headlines, which we do with the folks over at WKNO. We recently had Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris on the show. Coming up soon, we've got a look at the big Northside redevelopment that's going on, Northside High School. Kevin Ritz, the U.S. Attorney, is coming up in a couple of weeks. And then with the legislature getting into session, we've got a group of legislators coming on towards the end of the month. Last, and then we'll get back to Tim. We've got one of our first of our business seminars at the Daily Memphian coming up on February 28th at 3:30 at the Botanic Garden. Carol Coletta of Memphis River Parks Partnership, Pat Mitchell-Worley of Stacks in Soulsville, and Chloe Sexton of Bluff Cakes will all be on the panel and talking about their lives. It'll be great. The Women in Business Seminar is always really the best that we do of our various business seminars. You can go to Eventbrite, search for Daily Memphian, and you'll get a link there to get a ticket to go to that. And we've got a few more minutes here with Tim. So talk about the consulting. You're getting back. You'd done that. You'd consulted with restaurants. Then obviously Edge Alley took over your life for 7+ years. You're getting back into consulting. What does that mean to be who people are like, oh, restaurant consultant? I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
So, the vast majority of the work I was doing before opening the restaurant was kitchen design, interior design, and exterior design. So I think a lot of people think restaurant consulting and they think operations assistance or helping people fine tune their operation. And while I do some of that, the majority of it is meeting with clients, understanding their concept, and kind of putting myself in their shoes and designing the kitchen I would want in order for me to execute that concept. I've cooked all over the country. This is kind of all I've done before consulting, before the restaurant. I feel like the experience that I have as a chef influences the way I design in sort of a different way than some.
Yeah. How did you get into this business? I actually have never asked you that. I didn't even know you're originally from, is it Martin, Tennessee? Is that where we're talking
originally
about?
from Martin, Tennessee. How did I get in the restaurant business?
Yeah. And then how'd you get, how did all this come about?
So I'm originally from Martin, Tennessee. My first job in the restaurant business was in Martin, Tennessee at Shoney's.
There you go. Nice. Server, dishes, a little of everything.
Dish and prep. And I loved it. And then,
really?
I did.
Like you knew, like this is really cool. I really enjoy this.
I enjoyed it, but I didn't think I want to work at Shoney's forever.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And I never thought at the time that this was even a career option. I went to school in Murray, Kentucky for two-dimensional design and photography.
Okay.
And while I was there, I worked in a restaurant where I was encouraged by the chef, and she was fantastic. And I left Murray knowing that I was going to be a cook, and this was my career.
Yeah. Natalie, we were talking about this before. Well, I have one quick Shoney story. I had to meet a business partner who was from Little Rock, who was going up north, but he was going to come through, and he's like, "Hey, I'm running late. Is there any chance we can meet in West Memphis before I turn north?" And I said, "No problem. I'll come over." And he said that he remembered some kind of cool old like hole in the wall place that we were going to go to. It turns out that closed. So he's like, "I don't know where to go." I'm like looking on a map, and I go, "The Shoney's is really convenient. Let's go to shall we go to the Shoney's in West Memphis?" I don't know what I'm going to eat. I mean, I'm like, I'll do a Caesar with salmon. Like it'll be fine. It'll be kind of healthy. I'm not going to have a giant cheeseburger and fry or whatever. It was a really good Caesar with salmon. I remember eating it going, wait a second. Yeah. Like this is incredibly fresh lettuce. This salmon's really well. It was the weirdest thing. That was my Shoney's experience. I think it's the one and only time I've been in a Shoney's in my entire life. So there we go. It's because I picked on Shoney's. I want to make sure I said that.
Shout out to Shoney's.
Shout out to Shoney's. You'll be working mostly in Memphis or wherever the work takes you. I mean, I don't know what your plan is.
The majority of it is remote.
Gotcha.
I get a lot of shell drawings or just blank space drawings from architects.
Got it.
And so we can email back and forth or FaceTime. I also work with a design team out of Denver a lot, and they work for other people, and then I end up working for them. So some of it's under my name, some of it's subcontracted.
Yeah.
But that's the design work. A lot of or that's the kitchen design work. A lot of the interior design or anything beyond that is typically done in person, mostly in Memphis, the surrounding area, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Nashville.
Yeah. Do you think you'll get back to cooking? I mean, obviously you're going to cook for yourself, but do you think you'll take a beat and maybe want to get back into cooking and back into the kitchen, or just anything's possible?
I'm not ruling it out. I've had a lot of opportunity in these last 2 weeks. I've been offered lots of kitchens.
Would you ever go into a kitchen like temporarily? Is that a consulting thing you do? Because that's, I think, partly what I thought. Like, when you were saying like restaurant consulting and the operations would be like, hey, here, you got to clean up your menu. You got to figure this thing out.
I'm not Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
That's a TV show, and he has a big budget. No, I don't. I try to stay away from that as much as possible. I've done that. Yeah. It just doesn't typically go the way I would want it to go.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, people who, I mean, you can cut this. People
say it and we'll decide later.
Yeah. Well, often restaurants that need operational help to that extent aren't necessarily willing to accept that sort of advice, and then they just kind of go back to what they were doing, and so it's not fulfilling. So it's just not personally fulfilling. On that level. Yeah,
because there's some big personalities, right?
Always.
And there are people working 60 and 70 hours a week who are like, hey, you're not I can only imagine.
Or you don't understand because X, Y, and Z. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. That does make sense. What are your favorite spots in town? I'm putting you on the spot by saying that even,
yeah.
But like, where do you go and sit and stare at your tablet?
Stare at my tablet? Where do I write my books?
Yeah. When you're writing your books.
I go to Maciel's a lot in Midtown. It's super fresh. I mean,
it's really good.
Everybody goes there. It's delicious. It's really fresh. So always great. I like Catherine Mary's a lot. Yeah. Tamboli's. I spend a lot of time at Tamboli's.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Last question for which I try to always ask people: first concert you ever attended?
Tim McGraw.
Oh, where?
In Martin, Tennessee. At the college. I was 14.
Nice.
My friend's dad owned the Pizza Hut, and he had some promotional tickets, and we were front row.
That's a good one. That's definitely a first, right? We don't get that many. I don't. Yeah. Natalie would have remembered. We don't get very many country. And I don't know what that says about guests we book or my bias towards country, or I don't know what it is.
Country music?
Well,
I'll send you some stuff.
Okay, so I don't like new country music. I do like. I like old. There's certain country music I do like.
I'll send you some new country.
Send me. It could just be me.
Eric
just stuck
only likes Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll. I don't. So I didn't even know who that is.
I don't even know who that is. I don't. Houston. This is Natalie with a joke falling flat. Don't take that out.
Don't take that out.
All right. Again, but truly, thank you for amazing years at Edge Alley.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us.
Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, and I look forward to seeing what you do again. And in my heart of hearts, somewhere, you'll get the bug to start another restaurant down the road, and I will be there. So, Tim Barker, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That is all the time we have this week. Again, join us next week. We'll have another show.